to my channel. I'm going to be teaching you how to make an adorable book bag. An adorable book bag. This is perfect for anybody who loves to read. If you love to read, if you love to crochet, this is for you. It's beginner friendly and I feel like it's perfect for summer also. Guys, it's August 1st. Rust on your door. So I feel like it's the perfect time to pick up another easy crochet project. This one is definitely one of those. You can finish it within a day and it's really customizable. You only need two things. You need a crochet hook and some yarn, and you can make it with as many colors, as little colors as you want. Change the way that you make the straps, the length of the straps, and by the end of it you have a super cute book holder that you can take with you to the park, to the cafe, or even gift to a friend. Here are the two that I made, and this one was made with an anti-pilling yarn, and then this one is made with Impeccable from Loops and Threads from Michaels. Anyways, I will quit rambling. I really hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. It is my very first filmed tutorial, so I know it's probably not going to be perfect. If you have any questions, please ask them down below, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. And of course, you know, subscribe if, you know, you're cool like that. I'll have all the abbreviations and everything that you will need to know in this video. So yeah, have fun crocheting, and I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so we're gonna get started. All the materials that you're gonna need is 2 balls of yarn. Honestly, you can do any number of colors that you want. I made my original book bag like this with 3 colors, and I used a different yarn. This one is still a weight 4 yarn. This is the, I think the Basic Stitch anti-pilling yarn from, I think, Lion Brand. And I did 3 colors. This is one of my friend's yarns, so I'm not 100% sure, but from everything that I've seen, that's the yarn that I used. I actually made this bag without a yarn needle. I just connected it with a slip stitch and just tied the ends together instead of actually weaving them in, but you should probably weave them in properly. But yeah, that's the original book bag, and today I'm going to be making mine with just 2 colors. And I'm going to be using the yarn Impeccable from Loops and Threads. This is a Michaels yarn, and I'm going to be making it with a 5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle to weave in the ends. This is probably a good idea. I'm actually probably just going to tie my ends together because I really hate weaving them in, but you should weave them in properly. And then the last thing that you're going to need is a pair of scissors. I really like these tiny ones that I got from Miniso or Daiso, I can't remember, but they're really, really cute and really nice and compact. I've filmed a tutorial before, so bear with me. I'm going to start with the pink color. If you're doing 2 colors, this is going to be the color that's going to be the straps and the rim, so I would just keep that in mind. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually start making a granny square, and we're going to make 3 for this pattern. I'm going to put on the screen all of the stitches that you're going to need to know and the abbreviations, so that if you don't know any of the stitches already, you can go look up a tutorial for how to do them, because I'm not really going to like explain how to do each individual stitch, but I will explain how to make 1 granny square, and then you can repeat that the 2 more times until you have 3 granny squares to make your bag. But to start my granny squares, the way that I do it is I make a magic circle, and I make mine with 2-finger technique like that. There we go. And then once I have my magic ring, oh my god, why did I use the center pole? I hate using center pole. So I use the magic ring technique here, and then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2. After chaining 2, I'm going to double crochet twice into the ring. 1, 2. And then I'm going to chain 2. After chaining 2, I'm going to double crochet twice into the circle again. So there we go. 1, 2, and then we're actually going to do 3 times. Sorry. So after chaining 2, I'm going to double crochet 3, and then I'm going to chain 2 more times. Then I'm going to double crochet 3 again, 2, 3. I hate yarn barf. So as you can see here, we have 3 clusters. We have 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do 1 more cluster. So chain 2, and then we're going to double crochet 3 more times into the circle. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to tighten up our circle a little bit, and then chain 2. Then I'm going to tighten the circle all the way closed. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the third chain from that very first starting chain 3 that we had. So we have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top there. And then after I slip stitch, I'm actually going to cut my yarn. So this is a technique that I learned from TL Yarn Crafts. And the reason that she does this is because it kind of prevents any weird vortexing that might happen for granny squares. It's very common, but after I've cut my yarn, I'm then going to reattach it and do the second round of the granny square. Alright, so for round 2, I'm going to take my second color, and then I'm going to make a slip knot and attach it onto my hook. Then I'm going to look at my granny square that I have right here, and as you can see, this is the front of the stitches, right? They look normal, but we're actually going to flip it to the back, and the way you know it's the back of the granny square is that it looks a little bit more wavy, and it has kind of more, it's like a little bit more bumpy, I would say. So having my slip knot on my hook, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to hold that right there. This is going to be called a standing double crochet. And I find that it makes your stitches look a lot more seamless, I feel like, when you attach your yarn like this, so we don't have to do like a chain 3. So I'm going to yarn under as if we're doing like a double crochet, because we are, and then we're going to make our first double crochet. So there we go, we have our very first double crochet in that corner. I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to make 2 more double crochets. So we have the first half of our gap right there. Then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to double crochet 3 into the next corner. Chain 2, and then double crochet 3. Then I'm going to chain 1, double crochet 3 in the next corner, 2, 3, chain 2, double crochet 3 into that same gap, and then I'm going to chain 1 again, and then you know the drill, double crochet 3 into the next gap, chain 2, double crochet 3, chain 1. Then we're going into the very first gap that we started with, and I'm going to double crochet 3, and then I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the very first double crochet, that standing double crochet that we made. This might be a little bit tricky, but don't worry, it doesn't have to be super perfect. And then I'm going to cut the yarn. And then there we go, we have our second round of our granny square. As you can see, the yarn is getting a little bit loose, so I just kind of tighten up the magic ring every once in a while to make sure that it's all nice and neat. So now we're going to go on to round 3 of our granny square. Back to using our very first color again, and we're going to attach our yarn in the very same way that we did our last round, because we're going to be doing another standing double crochet. After a while, you're going to get used to kind of the pattern of this, but once again, I'm going to find the wrong side. So right now, this is the right side, and you always want to look at the row that you just did, and then you're going to flip. So see, this is the correct side of the pink side now. So I'm going to start with a standing double crochet, so I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to insert my hook into one of the gaps. I'm choosing to do the middle gap this time, and I'm going to do 1 double crochet. Then I'm going to do another 2, so that we have our 3 for that gap. And then I'm going to chain 1, double crochet 3 into the corner. And then since this is a corner, I'm going to make my first cluster of 3, chain 2, and then do my second cluster of 3 double crochets. So that is how you do the corners. Chain 1, then we're going to do our regular gap, which is just 3. Chain 1, go into the corner, do our first cluster of 3 double crochets, chain 2, double crochet 3, chain 1, double crochet 3 in the next gap, chain 1, double crochet 3 into that corner. And as you can see, it gets pretty repetitive. So I'm going to double crochet 3, chain 2, double crochet 3, and once again I'm going to chain that 1 to get over to the next gap where we're doing our clusters. So if it's not a corner, then you're just going to be doing 3 double crochets and then chaining 1 to get to the next part. So here again we're doing our corner, so it's 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then 3 double crochet again. And the fun thing about granny squares is that after you learn the pattern for how to continuously increase them, you can go as big as you want. For some projects, I've even done like a bunch of rounds and I've just made a blanket out of basically 1 granny square. So I chained 1 at the end of that corner right there because we are back at the start, and I'm going to slip stitch into that standing double crochet that we made. And this one is a lot easier to see because I didn't tighten the yarn. But then I'm going to cut the yarn, fasten off that round, and then we are done with round 3 of our granny square. So I hope that you guys kind of understand the pattern now. I'm going to verbally just kind of review. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a slip knot onto my hook of the cream color, flip my work. I'm going to do a standing double crochet in any one of the gaps, and then for this part I would double crochet 3, chain 1, and then start doing those corners. Once again, the corners are double crochet 3, chain 2, double crochet 3, and then chain 1, and then you're going to double crochet 3 for those regular gaps again, and chaining 1 in between each time. And you're going to repeat that 2 more times until you have 5 rounds of granny square. Since I started with pink, I'm going to end with pink. Once again, feel free to replay any of these parts in case you're having a hard time. So, I just finished round 4, which is exactly like we've been doing, just doing those double crochet 3 in each gap, and then in the corners doing the double crochet 3, chain 2. Now, and then double crochet 3. But now I'm going to do the very last row, and this is going to be row 5, and I'm going to be doing with my very first color, which was pink. And I'm going to tighten up the edges just a little bit, just so that all of the gaps are nice and even. But as you can see, I'm on the wrong side. I'm going to flip it so that we're on the right side of the pink. And then the only thing I'm going to be doing differently for this very last row is I'm not going to be doing chain 1s for each gap. I'm only going to be doing a chain 1 in the corners, and here's the reason for it. It's going to give a much tighter look for our squares, and it's going to have a much more seamless look when we are putting it together, the bag. As you can see here, the chains is giving a lot of gaps, but when we're assembling the squares, I want to have kind of the tightest edge possible so that the bag is nice and neat. You can do this for every single round if you want like a really tight, nice granny square. You can just skip doing any of the gaps. TL Yarn Crafts, like I said, does that to make it look really nice and have less of a vortex look. I kind of like the gaps, but then I like to do, like I said, the very last round without those chain 1s in between every single gap. So to do that, I hope you will kind of see what I mean. I know it sounds a little bit confusing now that I'm explaining it, but like always, I'm going to start my round with that standing double crochet in any one of the gaps. I'm going to do the one right before the corner, so right here, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets. So we had our first standing one and then my last 2. Now, instead of chaining 1, I'm actually just going to go directly in and double crochet 3 into that gap. So we have 2, 3, And then I'm literally just going to chain 1 for the corner instead of 2. And then I'm going to double crochet 3. If you want to make this process even simpler on yourself, you can just do all of your rounds this way and it'll make it look even tighter. That's how I do it for my blankets. It's just for this specific pattern I wanted to have kind of as much stretch in case I need to accommodate for like a bigger book. So we just finished that corner there, and then I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to go directly into the next gap, and we're going to double crochet 3 as we've been doing. Once again, not double crocheting 3, not chaining 1, just double crocheting 3 in every single gap, and then doing those corners with just the chain 1 instead of the chain 2. I feel this also gives kind of a rounder look to the granny squares. And then going into that gap and repeating until the very end of the square. And then once you're done, there's actually no need to leave a really long tail to sew the square together because we're actually going to be slip stitching all of our squares together. So I'm going to keep going until the very end of this square, and I will come back once it is done. So once I got to my final gap, and I did my double crochet 3, I didn't chain at all. I just directly slip stitched into the top of my very first double crochet of that round. So we are done making our very first square. Congratulations. I know that was a little bit complicated and it's not the most simple way to make a granny square, changing up like how many chains you do in between each gap, but I feel it gives a really nice clean look and I think it really suits the project. So we're done with our very first square. We're going to repeat that 2 more times and make 2 squares identical to this one. So come back after you've done those 2 squares and then we will assemble them together. Side note, if you want to weave in your ends now, you can do that before you start assembling. I personally weave in all of my ends at the very, very end of the project, but it's all up to you. Okay, so it is the next day and I've finished all of my squares and I also got my nails done, so ignore that, okay? Yeah, so we have our 3 squares done and the next thing we're going to do is connect them all with our yarn. You can sew them together, you can attach them in any way you want, really, but I'm going to show you how I did this at my friend's house from my other bag with just a slip stitch. I actually didn't have a yarn needle when I went to her house, so I made this without a yarn needle and I was impressed with how clean it looked, so I'm going to do that exact same method for this book bag as well. So the first thing we're going to do is lay out our squares in the formation that we need. So this is the formation we need, and for this one I'm going to try and get the wrong side facing out. So as you can see, this is the correct side. I'm going to make sure that the wrong side is facing out because we're going to flip it inside out. So wrong side again, and then wrong side again. This just ensures that all of the right sides of the granny squares are facing out when we attach them. So I'm going to start with connecting this like first corner, and I'm going to get my yarn. Once again, put a slip knot on my hook. And then I'm going to pick up my squares and I'm going to make sure that they're nice and lined up. Then what I'm going to do is take the very front stitch of both squares, as you can see right there, yarn over and slip stitch. So I'm just going to slip stitch down this entire side of this first square, attaching the 2 pieces together. Just going to keep slip stitching down until I've connected this entire side. So just picking up the 2 front loops, or sorry, the back loop of this first one and then the front loop of the second one. See? Oh! Split the yarn there. So pick up the first loop, front, and then back of the other one. And I'm just going to keep going down the line like this. So front, back loop, front loop, slip stitch. Front loop, back loop, slip stitch. And I'm just going to keep going down all the way. stitching as I go. So I'm going to keep going with this until the very end. Okay, so I just finished slip stitching that first side together. I'm going to pull out my yarn, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to do the next part. So now I'm going to attach the sides of the next granny square right there, and we're going to repeat that process of slip stitching all the way across. So I'm going to pick up my yarn, make sure it's all clean and ready. I know it's a little bit of a hassle to keep the ends out like this, but I promise it makes it really easy to clean up afterwards. So I'm at the end of that side, and now I'm going to pick up the next back loop, and then pick up the front loop of the corner of that second granny square, the one that we just attached. So now it's attached, and then we're going to slip stitch down the entire side again. So same process, picking up the front loop. Sorry, oh my god, I keep saying the wrong loop. I'm going to pick out the back loop of the next stitch, pick up the front loop of the next stitch, and slip stitch it together. And I'm going to repeat that process all the way down. Back loop, front loop, slip stitch. Back loop, front loop, slip stitch. Just repeating that process of connecting the granny squares seamlessly with that slip stitch method. I used to sew together my granny squares, and I can never get it to look as clean. So I'm really in love with this slip stitch method. Okay, so I just finished slip stitching all the way down to the bottom of that granny square. And as you can see, the bag shape is kind of forming. And the next thing that we're going to do is flip our work like that, folding that first like granny square in half, because it's going to be the bottom of the bag. Then I'm going to fold this edge also in half of that granny square. And we're going to slip stitch this part of the bag together. Oh my god, there's a hair. I'm so sorry. That is nasty. Okay. Now slip stitch these sides together as well. All the way down the same way that we've been doing it. So I'm going to pick up the front stitch. Sorry, the back loop of the first stitch, front loop of the stitch in front of it. I don't know how to explain it. Back loop, front loop, slip stitching all the way around. And this process is honestly pretty quick, and I like doing this because you're really doing all of the attaching in one pass. I feel like that's one of the bonuses to this pattern, is that there's really not a lot of assembly that you have to do. I think I completed my first bag in a night, not even. Alright, so we reached the end of that granny square. Now, it might be a little bit difficult to tell like what side you're attaching, but just kind of fold it in half again, kind of reconfigure it, and then you'll find it again. So there's the bottom, there's the right side of our work, and then the left side of our bag, which, like I said, these ends are really tingly, but it's going to be worth it. And then I'm going to slip stitch, maybe like 1 or 2 stitches more together, and then working on that next side. So I'm going to pick up my yarn once more, finding that edge, and then slip stitching our final side. So picking up back loop, front loop, slip stitching it together, and then you know the drill, go all the way down this side, and then I'll come back when that is done. Alright, so I finished slip stitching down that side, and now our bag is pretty much done in terms of like the actual square attachment and everything. It looks a little wonky. You just have to like press on it and kind of flatten it out a bit. And putting an actual book in there will definitely help kind of stretch it out and get the correct shape that you're going to want. But yeah, so that is the attachment of the squares. Now I'm going to leave somewhat of a long tail just for weaving in or tying the knot, and tying that end in. Cutting our yarn and pulling that thread through. So this is the wrong side of our bag, and the next thing I'm going to do is tie all the knots on this side, and then I'm going to flip the bag inside out. So if there are any ends that are on the inside of the bag, I'm going to pull them to the outside and kind of tie all of them together. There's just too many like ends to like weave in all of them. Like I said, you can weave in your ends at any point that you want. This is just when I prefer to do it and how I prefer to do it. Definitely not like the most professional way, because you should be weaving in your ends properly. But for my uses, I feel like this is fine. And it saves a lot more time in my opinion. So pulling all of my yarn ends to the outside of my bag, which is the wrong side, and then I'm going to be tying them all together. So I'm going to just show you kind of what that looks like. So I'm going to tie these two ends together, making sure that it's nice and tight. And I always kind of triple or double knot it to keep it as tight as possible and ensure that it's not going to come loose, because it's going to be facing the inside of the bag anyway. I don't see the point in making the inside super clean, but I'm just going to keep doing that, tying together all my ends, and then I will come back when it is less of a tangled mess. So with the ends all woven in, there was one end that I left out, and it was over here in the middle, and that's actually because we're going to be doing the border, so like kind of like the outside. So for the moment of truth, I'm going to flip it inside out so you can see what the right side of the work looks like. So it looks a lot more flat, looks quite a bit cleaner if I do say so myself. And then there are the two ends I was talking about right there. But I'm leaving those out for now. I'll weave them in a minute. But we're actually now going to do our border, and I'm super excited because it's going to make it kind of pull all together, and then we're going to attach our strap as well. So directly on our work, we're going to put a slip knot once again on our hook, and then after popping the slip knot on, I'm actually going to attach it there. Oh, I just lost my slip knot. I'm going to attach my work literally anywhere, and I'm going to just single crochet around the entire thing. So going in every single spot, just going around and single crocheting. So you're just going to single crochet around the entire thing, slip stitch back into that very first single crochet. So for the sake of the video, I will come back, for the sake of the length of the video I would say, I'm going to come back after I'm done single crocheting. Okay, so I just slip stitched into that very first single crochet that we did, and now I'm going to cut my yarn. Then we're going to figure out where we want our strap, and also you can pick whichever stitch you want for the strap. I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do mine. If you want it to make it look exactly like this one. So for the strap, you can make it any width, any stitch. I'm just going to show you how I did mine. So on my original bag, this is done with single crochet, and I believe it's 9 stitches wide. Let me check. Yeah, so it's 9 stitches wide, and this is done with single crochet because I wanted it really sturdy. I'm going to be doing this next one with single crochet done in the back loop only, so it's going to have a little bit more of a ribbed effect. If you want more of a flat stitch like this, just do single crochet. We're doing single crochet just in the back loop only. So I'm going to put another slip knot on my hook. Then I'm going to look at my bag, and I'm going to look at the top corner here. Now you can figure out however wide you want yours. I'm going to make mine from here to here, which is going to be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to attach my yarn here, and I'm going to single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'm going to do one more, so 8. So we have 8 single crochets. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then I'm going to single crochet in the back loop of that very first stitch. So the yarn is a little bit light, but I'm going to try my best to show you. There's the front loop, and then there is the back loop. So that is the back loop right there, and then the front loop there. So I'm actually going to just single crochet into that back loop. And as you can see, it kind of adds this ribbed effect. And I'm going to repeat that all the way down the line. So just single crocheting in the back loop of every single stitch. Now this takes a little bit more time, and it's really just an aesthetic thing. It really depends on how you want your strap to look. I want this one ribbed, so that's why I'm doing it in the back loop. But you can go through both loops and get a more flat stitch like this. Once again, chaining 1 at the end of every round, or row. Sorry, I meant row. And just once again, single crocheting in the back loop. And I'm going to repeat that until I reach my desired length of strap, and I will let you know what that is once I come back. It really just depends on how tall you are, or how tall the person you're making this for is, but I will put on the screen how many rows I did. That's how many I did for this bag in this video, so I will come back after the strap is done. I apologize if y'all hear any loud yapping in the back. It's because my brother is literally gaming in the other room, and we are right next to each other, so my bad if you hear that. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, so I just finished doing my rows. I got 52 rows of the single... Oh my god. And now we are going to attach the strap. Now you can make this literally any length you want. Okay, I just did 52. If you're taller, then you can add more. If you're shorter, you can do less. It just depends on preference. So first thing I'm going to do is kind of straighten out the strap and make sure that it's kind of the way that I want. So see, I want it flat, 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 so that it is nice and smooth and connected. You know what I'm saying? So that it lays nice when we attach it. So that's how I'm going to have mine. And then I'm going to reattach my yarn. I'm going to chain 1 there. And then now we're going to slip stitch our work onto the other side of the bag. So I'm going to kind of hold it flat like this and just kind of line it up with where the other one started, and I'm going to do the entire stitch this time. So I'm going to go through the front loop, or I'm going to go through both loops of my strap and then go through both loops of my bag to have kind of a more secure strap. So just going through both stitches, slip stitching that on a little bit nicer because I really want it to stick and stay very nice. But that's our strap attached, and now we have the basis of our entire bag done. So this is what our bag looks like. I'm going to go ahead and weave in all of my ends, make sure it looks all nice for you guys, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like with a book. Okay, so that is what the book bag looks like with a book actually in it. I like to put my romance books in there because I think they look really cute, and I really like the covers for these for kind of just this design. But yeah, that is how you make the aesthetic book bags. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Tag me on Instagram and TikTok if you end up making these, and I will see you in the next one. Love you. Bye!